Welcome. We're so glad to have you all here today. My name is Via Perkins. My pronouns are she, her. I'm originally from Boston, but I've been living in NYC for about 5 years now. And I'm a music marketer who's worked with companies like Genius and CD Baby. And I've been volunteering with the FAM as their director of marketing for a couple of months now. And I will be leading the event today. So, just to get started, a little bit about the FAM. The FAM is a nonprofit org. It's committed to leading, tearing down the toxic culture of competition in the music industry. And the goal is really to build a more accessible and equitable industry, especially for folks who have been historically marginalized. And then in turn, that leads to better mental health and well-being for artists and professionals of all backgrounds. The FAM helps equip aspiring and established musicians and professionals with the resources that they need to be able to succeed. You know, things like networking events and mentorship programs that enable them to build connections with folks who share their values. So if you're interested in learning more about the FAM, Erin can drop a link in the chat to our socials and website and everything so that you can see those. So now we'll go ahead and do a round of intros. We're incredibly privileged to have John Beeler and Mattiel in the virtual room with us today to share their expertise and wisdom on all things music distribution and protecting your creative work. And by the way, don't forget, we'll have a Q&A towards the end, so feel free to add questions into the chat as they come up during the presentation. I'll take note of those. Or you can raise your hand during the Q&A section at the end, and then we can address them before we wrap today. So John and Mattiel, I'll let you introduce yourselves before we hop into the presentation.
Mattiel, you want to go first?
Sure. My name's Mattiel. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been working pretty actively in the music industry with my own career for about 10 years now. So it's really nice to be here. Thanks to the FAM for having me.
I'm John. I also live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am just a music industry, music lover guy. I ran Sufjan Stevens record label for several years until recently and decided to try some new things. And one of those things has been managing Mattiel, which has been a real honor and a privilege. And I'm just thrilled to be here with y'all. I feel very lucky to have a connection point to so many wonderful human beings. So that's me.
Beautiful. So John, you can take it away with your presentation and then we'll go into the Q&A after that.
Okay. I wonder if this is gonna work. We might have to wing it. Okay.
Yeah, let us know if you need a hand with anything.
Yeah, I think maybe this will work. Give me 1 second to troubleshoot this one thing, and I think I got it.
All good. Okay.
This is why people still use PowerPoint, by the way. It's like um okay, I think this will work. Okay, is this working?
I can see it. Can everyone else see it? Beautiful.
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, good. Okay. So, is everybody okay? Well, I'm gonna swear. Okay, I'm gonna curse. That's okay. Own your shit. That's what we're gonna be talking about today. The ins and outs of distribution, how to distribute your music. This is really hard to see on here, but and protect your creative work. It's doing something funky with the font, but that's fine.
It looks great.
Good. Okay, so in terms of my experience with distribution, I've worked with artists on self-serve distribution platforms before, and that includes Mattiel. We just had one event that we'll discuss in a little bit of a detail as a case study. And then I've also ran Sufjan's record label. We were partnered with Secretly Canadian, or Secretly Distribution, used to be called Secretly Canadian. In my opinion, one of the best distributors in the world, very white glove, like excellent hands-on service from them. So I've uploaded things to DistroKid and watched them fall apart and navigated the wonderful world of DistroKid customer service. And I have worked through Secretly Distribution, where we essentially have very handheld process and a whole team of dozens of people working on a project. So I can speak to everything on those sides and in between. Mattiel, do you want to mention about your, like, are y'all seeing both of us, or how's that? Can you, I don't know. Mattiel, why don't you tell us what your experience is with distribution as an artist? And it could be not much to lots. I think it's important just to get that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, distribution is just one of the many like pieces of the puzzle, and there are just so many different ways to do things that there's kind of no right way, unless it's like not right for you. I mean, like whatever you decide to do with a label, with a distributor, any deals that you do with publishing, all of those things in my head are kind of like these different puzzle pieces that have to work together and fit very well together. And they have to be tailored to your needs. So it's not like a one size fits all thing. Like everybody has a unique way of approaching distribution, deals with the label, publishing, all these different things. So I kind of had to figure out what distribution looks like amongst all those other elements.
Yeah, and it's changed a lot. Like I feel like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, I don't think any artists were talking about distribution, because record labels, for the most part, handle distribution. That, of course, changed with like CD Baby, TuneCore, but those have become much more popular really in the last 10 years, if not more recently. So it used to be something that you didn't have to worry about at all. And now it's one of the most asked questions when artists are thinking about releasing music. So just to give you a little bit of an outline, we're going to talk through a couple of case studies. We're going to talk through some of the ins and outs of distribution. But first, I wanted to start with a little bit of a manifesto, and it is like a interactive part. And I don't know if this is going to work because we're breaking the rules of Zoom, but you can unmute by hitting the space bar. I wonder if this is going to work. Let's try this. And whenever you, I don't know, this is a huge experiment. When you see this, okay, this is like the applause sign. Hold down your space bar and say it with me. So do it now. Hold down your space bar, see if it works. Unmute. Is this going to work?
Own your shit.
Own your
Own your
shit.
shit.
We're going to keep doing it until it works, though. Y'all are going to have to unmute, otherwise it's going to get more and more awkward. So every time you see that slide, that little beeping thing, I'll give us a count.
Own your shit.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Aaron. So let's talk about a manifesto. What is a manifesto? So a manifesto sounds really serious. It sounds like we're overthrowing the government. Actually, the origin of the word manifesto is really, it's Italian. Mattiel is in Italy right now. So manifesto is actually why a manifest exists. A manifest is an inventory. We're going to talk about inventory. We're going to talk about businesses today. So a manifesto is really just a public declaration explaining reasons or motives for a course of actions done or planned. I love a definition like that. It's basically like why we did this stuff and why we're going to do it in the future. You all need it. If you're an artist, you need an artist manifesto. Now, it doesn't have to be like you're going to change the world, but it needs to, you need to have like these principles that explain your intent for why you've done certain things. So you've thought about the past and you're thinking about what you're going to do in the future. So why you're going to do certain things. So some of you are asking, what does this have to do with distribution? Why do I need a manifesto? Well, really everything you do as an artist should come from an intent. It should be founded on these ideas or principles that you have that you hold to as much as possible. So when I think about how distribution should work, here's just a few that I think will help. one thing, you work in an industry. So this is really important. The music industry, I say this all the time, it will eat you for breakfast and it'll spit you out for lunch. It's like, you got the juice, y'all got the juice, and you will be squeezed by the industry. So you have to protect what's yours. And just like, it doesn't mean that you have to be aggressive or hostile. What it does mean is you be strong and principled, and you stick to your manifesto, right? The second thing we're going to talk about in terms of informing distribution is a worker is worth your hire. I love this. This is actually a scripture verse from Timothy 3:15 in the Bible. Y'all didn't know you're going to get preached at, right? But here we are. What's happening in the first century? There's all these men and women going around. They're starting churches. They're feeding people spiritually, literally. They're basically uplifting all these people, and they're not getting paid. Like, the churches are like, thanks, see ya. Does that sound familiar? And y'all know what I'm talking about? So Paul is writing to this little mentoree named Timothy, and he's like, y'all, you need to get paid. A worker is worth their hire. Y'all are the pastors and preachers of the 21st century. Y'all are the people that express our needs, our desires, our wants, our nightmares. So you're praying to the universe for us. So guess what? A worker is worth their hire. Y'all need to get paid. I love the process, by the way, in terms of like value and worth. When we're talking about distribution, they're handling your goods, right? So the process of releasing music is really the process about bringing the world along to realize the value of your work. So the process of releasing music, like, and there's a process, and one of those processes is distribution, is really about bringing the world along to know the value that you already know about in your work. So if you believe that your work has value, it's just a matter of time before the world catches up. That's what you're trying to do when you distribute or release music. So yeah, business, you run a business. I went a little too fast. You are an entrepreneur, you are a business owner. Business is a series of transactions, it's trade-offs, right? So there's this ideal that you don't have to compromise. And I'm always admirable of artists who make really hard lines. I think the Cindy Lee record that came out earlier this year is a wonderful example of somebody holding true to their own manifesto. So their music is not on DSPs. They did not distribute, well, they did distribute it. They just didn't use any of the methods that we're talking about today. They're using PayPal and GeoCities and like Dropbox. That's a distribution method, by the way. And that's an example of somebody holding true to their public declaration of how they're going to do things. But it's not always like that. And all the business that you're going to run is going to have trade-offs. So you're going to give away something to get something. We exist in capitalism, and there are ways to exceed that by creating like peopleism and creating long-term relationships with people that are valuable and that are assistive. But we have to accept the reality that we're in, which is like, it is capitalism. So one thing I want to say before I get to my next point, when we talk about distribution, we're talking about inventory. So if you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur, your music is your inventory, right? It's basically like if you're running a coffee mug shop and somebody walks into your store and they're like, hey, what coffee mugs do you have to sell me? And you're like, I don't really know. I've got some of them. So part of being a business owner is knowing the inventory of what you've got, knowing the worth and the value, and also having a hard database on what your inventory is. And nobody cares about your music. It's true. They will, right? They'll come to see the value of your music, but no one's going to care about your music more than you. When you go through your music career, there's going to be managers that come and go. There's going to be record labels that come and go. There's going to be distributors that come and go. So I think sometimes what happens early on in a career is like, you're like, what's the secret code to crack so this can work? And I think what Mattiel just said is so appropriate. It's like, there are no rules. Like, everybody's doing it differently. There's no secret code. There's no like path to success that is going to work for you, because even if it just worked for somebody else, everything has changed every day. So what has worked for somebody else yesterday may not work for you. Any like quick, I don't know, I think you can ask some questions in the chat. Mattiel, do you have any comments on any of that?
Yeah. Da, 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 da. I think the industry is changing so much now that one thing that's really important to note is that there's a whole world of old school music industry stuff that is still trying to hang on. And I don't know, like certain labels, I'm not sure how long they will last with the way that they're trying to do things or how they're going to decide to keep up with the changes in technology and changes in kind of like knowledge. Like there's just a whole lot more kind of public knowledge for young musicians that they have access to, so they have a better idea, I think, now than maybe 20 or 30 years ago, of what is their intellectual property and how to hang on to that and make the right decisions about that, because one false move can change the next 5 or 10 years of your future if you sign a bad deal or if you don't get good advice or you don't have a lawyer. So I guess that's kind of what comes to mind for me, is that we're just in a very like transitional time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm a big fan of YouTube, mostly because I can go on there and learn how to repair my 2007 Toyota. Like, and that wasn't possible 10 years ago, right? Like the upside of that is like I can repair my own car. The downside of that is like I'm in the weeds sometimes, like trying to figure out like, okay, what like shock do I need and where do I buy it from? And this website says this and this website says that. And like this YouTuber says to get these kind of shocks. And this is like you can get paralyzed because there's so much information that it's very difficult to know what to do. So I think that's a point in building like a core set of principles and owning your, well, let's go ahead and see if this will work. So like, oh my gosh, it works. Okay. Y'all ready?
On your shit.
All right, hang
Oh,
on.
On your
Own
Oh,
your
shit.
This will work. All right, we'll get there. All right. So let's talk about some case studies. We're gonna do two. We're gonna do Linda first, and then Mattiel, these are both wonderful artists, and I have been lucky to work with both of them. And we're gonna talk about Linda first. So, oh, there's Linda sliding in. So Linda is in her maybe now mid to late 70s. She signed with us at Asthmatic Kitty in 2013. She was working on a record. At the time, she was, I think, in her early 70s at that point, and it had been 44 years since her last record. She had released a record in 1970. She was a dental hygienist in Los Angeles, and she was doing the teeth of a guy named Leonard Rosenman. Some of you have heard of this guy. He's a hugely famous producer. And he's like, what are these songs that you're singing? And she was like, oh, I wrote these songs. And from there, she got a contract with Cap Records. It was like one of the first big independent labels. And they put out a record, Parallelograms. If y'all have heard of this record or seen it, you're lucky, because if you haven't, you got to listen to this record. It's so good. It probably charted a path for like psych folk that is still being followed today. It's extremely influential. And it's also like big in popular culture. It was featured, like she got Sync before Sync was a thing. 1970s TV show synced one of her songs. She was sampled by the Whispers in 1970. Notorious B.I.G. sampled them later on. So like her music is kind of perpetuated in American culture in all these different ways. She was featured in a Daft Punk documentary. So she comes to us with this new record, and we're setting things up. And Linda calls me one day. She's like, John, I wonder if she's just such a gentle soul. She's like, John, I wonder if you can help me. I'm like, yeah, anything, Linda. What do you need? And she's like, I've never seen a dime from Parallelograms, and I'm just wondering, like, is there money out there? And I was like, what? Like, we've been talking about this record, Parallelograms, like it's legend. And of course, I understand how the music industry works, but it was just shocking to hear that Linda had never made any money from this record. So we used our lawyer, we dug around, and I was so confident that we'd be able to get her something. The reality is that the distribution had been so parceled up. Basically, Cap Records sold to MCA, and MCA got like it like got perpetuated into like hundreds of rights organizations over the course of 40 years. And it was the amount of money that was like that had been distributed and should have gone to Linda was a life-changing amount of money. Linda had been working as a dental hygienist that whole time. And she might still have had to be a dental hygienist, but like this was a life-changing amount of money for her. And there was no way for us to get it. We would have had to go to like international court. And it was like, it wasn't even like labels you've heard of. It was like distributors that just pop up and they snag, they're like spam bots. Like they just like snag things that people aren't watching and take the money. And then like you might be able to get it back, but like it'll cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the money. So let's talk about Mattiel. A couple of weeks ago, we had like a little, Mattiel has a self-titled record that came out a few years ago. It was with Mattiel, correct me, but I think it was Burger Records, is that right? And
Yeah.
the contract expired, and it basically meant that Mattiel could self-distribute this record. So we had uploaded it to TuneCore, and we were going to make some changes because we're consolidating things on Lander. These are different self-serve platforms. And one of the team members accidentally hit takedown a little early, which is like a nightmare for me as a record label guy. It's like, like having dealt with takedowns before, it might be fine, but there's just an equal chance that like everything's going to get messed up. So we moved it Lander, and it just added this sense of tension to try and get it up there. And like when it got up there, would it be correct? And would the metadata be there? Would we get the streams? Like there's just all these questions. And luckily it all worked out. Like it was up there. But it was also down during a period where it debuted on a show. And so that just means like people couldn't find it. And that was just like somebody hitting the wrong button. Like it was just somebody hitting takedown before it was supposed to be taken down. And so, you know, Mattiel, when you were talking about like there are all these kind of things you can do that can cause lasting mistakes. I think that this is a good example. Like Linda, she didn't know it. Like, I don't blame her. She didn't know that she's supposed to. How could she have watched all these contracts? It's just not even possible, right? But even in this instance, where it's like real time in 2024, we're still kind of making some of the same mistakes and trying to catch them before they get too big. So yeah, Mattiel, do you have any thoughts on either of those?
Yeah.
Titled or
Yeah, I would say if you're just starting out in the music industry, like no matter how smart you are, no matter how good of a lawyers you have, you will not avoid making some mistakes. Some mistakes will happen inevitably. Hopefully they're not too bad. And you just have to learn from them and move along and keep making new work, because then you'll know what to do or what not to do when you have another hit song that's like just coming out of the blue and it's something new. So I've had to have times where I don't let myself fret too much about some of the little mistakes that have happened with very good songs and very good material I've written, because I know that I'm the source. So I can just make new stuff and try not to make the same mistakes next time after that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about loops lately and how we have to like iterate and decreasing the time in that loop. Like, I don't think it means you release a song every 2 weeks, but I think like being able to iterate very quickly, because the industry is looping all the time. It's iterating, it's improving, it's de-improving. So as an artist, you have to set your own cadence for how that works. And that includes, you know, making mistakes sometimes. And it's fine most of the time. No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Linda and Mattiel are signing up on there. Long-term or short-term? So Linda's a good example of a long-term distribution problem. Mattiel's self-titled record is a good example of a short-term distribution problem. If you're not watching your distribution, nobody else is. So basically, are you all ready? All right. So we're gonna do this all at the same time. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Own your shit. Gotta do it.
I really tried that time. It didn't work.
It's so hard, right? Like we're so uncoordinated anyway as human beings.
I'm imagining it as if we were in the same room. So
Yes.
it's thought that counts.
If all y'all walk away with today is like a vague recollection of own your shit, our job is done. So let's move into some of you are like, okay, this is cool. Are we going to talk about distribution? So let's talk about distribution. The history of distribution goes back to the history of record labels. Record labels at the start distributed their own music. They made deals with companies and record stores and department stores like in the 60s or whatever. It was all physical, right? It was basically deals made to distribute music. This is actually, these are Sufjan records here at Secretly Distribution in Bloomington, Indiana, a couple of years ago. And this is very much still true for a lot of companies. Most of the companies that we'll talk about today do not do physical distribution. A few of them do. Secretly, for example, does. ADA, Amped, Orchard. They will do physical distribution. And it's really actually kind of the same thing. Basically, they have brokered deals with the outlets and venues that sell physical records to say, we will sell records to you at this much money, and you can sell them for however much money you want to sell them for. But here are kind of the deals of the trade. The interesting thing about this is that we're going to talk about metadata in a second, but there's a lot of metadata with physical distribution that people don't think about. Like, for example, there's box counts to these boxes. Inside the boxes are like the measurements of the records, right? And the weight of the records. This is part of the metadata that gets transmitted for physical distribution and has to be figured out. How many records are on a pallet when you're shipping to Amazon? What's in the record? Like, is there a download code? Is there a booklet? Like, there is a lot of metadata, and there's a proclivity to say like digital distribution is brand new and it's this new thing that people invented, but really it's all the same stuff. Like, it's metadata associated with a product. So what happens now when we talk about digital distribution? So when like iTunes came around in 2005, and then later like Bandcamp in 2010, and digital downloads, and in 2015, Spotify, most of us will do perhaps some physical distribution. You might sell it through Bandcamp, which is a kind of distribution. I'd put that more in e-commerce. But when we're talking about digital distribution, we're talking about the process flow from artist, maybe a label, to distributor, distro, to aggregator, to DSP. These are all gatekeepers. My text formatting isn't working on the screen, but basically the label is a gatekeeper. The distro is a gatekeeper. The aggregator probably doesn't care that much. The DSP is a gatekeeper. So there's a lot of gatekeepers along the way of distribution, and that has been democratized by a lot of platforms that will just be like, we'll upload whatever you have to upload, no problem. Oh, so I revealed my reveal too early. The key thing that you got to worry about is like Mattiel said, the rules are always changing. Nobody's got like a standard path, like nobody's got a secret code. So how do you own your distribution? Well, you cannot go through this process and go self-distribute in the sense that you could upload your stuff to Spotify. They won't let you do it. You have to go through at least an aggregator, if not an approved distributor. So what does it mean to own your shit when you do have to go through all these gatekeepers? I'm going to share, you already know that I spoiled it, the most powerful tool for self-distribution or managing your own distribution, and it is Microsoft Excel, the Macintosh edition. Actually, you can use any edition. You can use Google Sheets. I just loved that I typed Excel into Google Images and this popped up. I was like, yes. I love that it said, do not make illegal copies of this disk. I guess you go to Excel jail if you do. So, but I love that like this is from 1998 and it's still one of the most powerful tools for distribution. So what do I mean by that? It means you store your metadata with you. It means you can print it out. It means you can send it to people. It means that when you complete a song or a record, you're recording all the important information that's associated with that. Now, this is going to be a little overwhelming, but this is kind of just going to work. Here we go. This is like the kind of metadata that you need to track when you're an artist. And this is just page one. There's a second page here too. And it's like, there's a ton of it, and it can be overwhelming, right? It's like, is it going to work? Oh, here it comes. So it used to be that you didn't need anything more than artist and song title, but because of the nature of metadata and because of rights organizations that are perpetuated globally, all the DSPs do require increasing amounts of metadata, and it's only getting more and more every year. So what almost always happens is an artist is very focused on the creative process, and they'll record the music, and they're not as concerned about splits or where it was recorded or when. But what inevitably happens is managers, record labels, artists, if you're self-releasing, means you got to track all that information down. Now, everybody's going to come up with their own process, but at some point, the more metadata you can store in your Excel spreadsheet, the better off you are. Because when you upload it to the cloud, when you upload it to TuneCore or to DistroKid, and you just assume that it's going to stay there, the reality is it'll not. At some point, one of those places is going to die, and you'll have to figure out how to get that metadata back. So the best way to stop that from happening is to own your shit and to create the Excel spreadsheet and capture all this information on a track by track basis so that you're not giving it away. It belongs to you. It's your inventory. So don't let somebody else have it unless you already have it. Mattiel, any thoughts on Excel?
I am not really a organizational girly like that. Although I've had to learn how to be in some ways, and really the most of the time use Excel documents for is like tour budgeting. So if I'm planning a tour and I'm in charge of the budget and I need to figure out like how much I'm getting paid and how much I might make and how much I need to pay people and all the equipment I need to rent and hiring all the people I need, I use an Excel document for that. But yes, you can also use it for keeping track of your own shit.
Yep. Cindy, I love that you're drawing on this. Feel free to draw away, y'all. I'd love that if you want to like draw, you draw whatever. So what's the point of, I mean, I already said this. Is it going to work? So if it starts with you, like if your core metadata is supposed to start with you, what are we going to do? We're going to 3, 2, 1. Own.
Own
your
your
shit.
shit.
We get it. Kind of. All right. Okay, so this is actually really helpful. So now you're wondering, okay, so I'm swimming in Excel spreadsheets. They're incomplete. I've got like primary artists on one of them, and I can answer some questions about that metadata later. I don't even know what ISRCs and what's the difference between an ISRC and an ISWC. Like, I don't even know. I just want to make music. I just want to play in front of people. Like, why am I doing an Excel spreadsheet? And now you're like, can I just distribute? Like, just give me a distributor, John. Like, just tell me. There's a lot of them out there. There's a website called Ari's. He looks a little bit like Bob Ross, and he has this great spreadsheet. You can search up Ari's take on distributors, and it lists dozens of them. There's so many, and there's some of them that are so self-serve. I would put DistroKid in that corner, that are like, if you upload it and you have a problem with it, like kind of good luck. And then there's other ones, you know, with me, Mattiel, we've gone with Lander, and their customer service has been pretty good. You know, they commit to a certain amount of turnover on their customer service tickets if you pay a certain amount of money. And that's actually been really helpful. But there's also things they can't do. Like we're trying to we had done a cover song. Mattiel had done a cover song of Terry Gibbs and a guy named Robert Dylan. By the way, I'm giving you all some links. Go look up Terry Gibbs after you look up Linda Perhacs and Mattiel. But we done Mattiel had done a cover of Terry Gibbs and Bob Dylan, and we were trying to get the music video cleared on YouTube. And it turned out my experience with distributors is secretly, and they like handle all this stuff for us. So they clear all that stuff anyway. Well, it turns out like these self-serve platforms will not clear cover songs for you. You got to manage that yourself. So I'm going into the CMS system on YouTube and finding out who owns it and looking at publishing rights. And, you know, there's all, like Mattiel said, there's always going to be hurdles, mistakes. Like there's always going to be these obstacles. So there is an advantage to going with at least somebody that you can get a customer service response from versus somebody that you can't. So these are just a few takeaways, and I'm so sorry that it's rendering very differently than I intended, but there is no perfect distributor. They're always going to make mistakes. You got to octuple check everything like 8 times, look it over, like have your Excel spreadsheet, print it out, have it on one screen on your iPad or whatever, and have the data entry on another screen if you're doing it yourself, because one mistake in song title can kind of really mess things up. So just triple, quadruple, octuple check everything when you're running through the metadata. And then make sure you read the fine print. Now, all the distributors that are currently available for artists to use, they are issuing deals through advances, through money that they're getting through investors. Currently, I don't know of any that, although there might be one out there who is adopting a record label approach where they own your masters. However, it is so crucial to read the fine print right now because of the way that AI is taking place. For example, just this week, HarperCollins, a book publisher, announced that they made a deal with Microsoft to transfer all their nonfiction books over to Microsoft for AI training. And they were like, oh, authors can opt out if they want. And it was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Like, you can opt out? Like, there's no opt-in. Like, it's not like a voluntary process. It's like, so do not assume that just because your customer service with one particular self-serve distribution platform is friendly with you, or because their website looks good, or because you haven't had any problems, that like 2 years down the road, they're not going to get sold to somebody that's going to use your music for AI training. Now, that might be fine with you, but if it's not consensual, it's not good. So it is really crucial to read the fine print on this stuff if you can. Yeah, they will make mistakes that you have to fix. Your distributor will not fix the mistakes for you. You have to make them fix them. Yeah, there's a bunch of other rights organizations and there's books that advise on this that can go into greater detail. But one of the biggest things, especially for those of you in the US, is to register with Sound Exchange so you can make sure that you're getting performing rights money. That can actually be pretty significant sometimes. So that is a valid path of distribution, even though it kind of sits outside that path. Register your copyright, your trademark. You can do that through the Library of Congress. It takes a while. It costs a little bit of money. It's worth it if you can do it. And then set up audit reminders to check DSPs, to make sure your metadata is being represented well, to make sure that your distribution company is not using your data for AI training unless you want them to. So, and really, the goal should be that you build your business big enough that you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. You hire the right person or the right agency to manage this for you. So you don't have to do this forever. So that's a good consolidation price, is that you don't have to manage your own Excel spreadsheet. But if you do it yourself, then when you hire somebody, you can expect that from that company, right? Or that person. Okay, I had a lot of material to go through. We're going to end it off, I think, with one final OWS. Y'all ready? All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Your shit.
Good.
Oh man, we should have done this late at night. I feel like this particular time period was, we're all kind of nappy, but y'all did great. I really appreciate it. Okay, so Mattiel, any thoughts on picking a distributor and owning your shit?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, just as John was saying, we were using TuneCore for years because it's pretty inexpensive, but the customer service isn't very good. So thank you, John, for making the suggestion that we move to Lander, which is a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it because they'll answer all your questions on a timely basis, and you don't feel lost, and you can get answers if you're confused about anything. So that's really important. And then, like, I don't know, for me, it's been a journey of like every year that I continue in the business, I have to kind of make my moves based on my belief in myself and what I need to protect of myself. And one of those first moves I made was copywriting or trademarking my name, because I was in a band, but the band was my name, Mattiel, but I had co-collaborators. However, I didn't want there to be any chance that anybody could use my name in the future to do anything if I'm not involved. So I made it a point at the very beginning of this whole journey to trademark the Mattiel name so that I could have control over performing, merch, all of the above. So things like that are really important because people will take your shit. Like,
Yeah.
there's people like who will like we said at the beginning of this meeting, it will chew you up and spit you out. And what that looks like is like there's sharks everywhere. There's always been sharks in the music industry, so you got to really be on top of it.
Yeah, I told one artist who had discovered their work on Redbubble, and he was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Well, the good news is, well, the bad news is you're on Redbubble. The good news is you're on Redbubble. like you've now hit a point where people want to siphon off from your creative work, and there's kind of something good about that. Like you've hit, like it's better to be. I think this came out a couple of years ago when music piracy was kind of a big deal. Nobody cares about it anymore. But I can't remember what kind of fan, maybe it was Seth Godin, but he was like, music piracy is a tax on popularity, like and I think Redbubble is the new tax on popularity. It's a little bit like whack-a-mole with certain artists. But it's not just like Redbubble, it's not just like people out there. There's also like industry people, like distributors who will take whatever they can from you. They will squeeze you for the juice. And so the path to maintaining good mental health and business prowess is to own your shit and to watch that.
Is everyone familiar with the Taylor Swift kind of story of like her version? Okay, so if you know that much, then those are the rules to go by. Like the master ownership situation can get really hairy.
Yeah.
You know,
and I actually, that's a good point, Mattiel. And I think like record labels have been out because they take such a huge cut of, in some cases, perpetuity in a weird way. The reason why record labels have stopped functioning well for artists means that somehow they've doubled down on owning more of the artist for longer periods of time, which I'm a big record label guy. I think they bring a huge amount of value to a campaign. But yeah, the weird thing is like, I actually think that in the vacuum, I would not be surprised if distributors who have been endowed with a lot of VC investor money over the last few years are starting to look at all the stuff that's flowing through them. And they're like, we would like to have a bite of that. And so I would not be surprised if, in a weird roundabout way, distributors don't become like record labels. I mean, they're already doing marketing services, a lot of them. They're one step away from asking for master rights because that's the next step. So we'll see.
I want to jump in as well because I did see a question in the chat, and we can move into our Q&A section if that works for y'all. But just to read Gwen's question, they said, would you say taking the time to ensure no mistakes are made in the distro process is more important than getting new material out as fast as possible? Which I thought was a good question. So if thoughts on that?
I would say absolutely, because you have no way to predict what your compositions will do or how well they'll do or how they'll be received. So each one is just as important as the next because the nature of popularity is unpredictable. So you don't want to make a mistake on any of your tracks because all of them have the potential to be huge. And if one is huge and you made a mistake, like that's not good. Yeah.
That's a great point. There's so many artists whose best performing song, either on social media or streams or sync or whatever, is a song they wrote in 2 minutes that they didn't really even care about that much.
Exactly.
Like that is true. And it frustrates a lot of artists to no end because the best artists are the hardest workers. And so it can be frustrating to just sit down and write a song and throw it up and all of a sudden it goes bananas. And the reality is if you're not careful in uploading that and getting the metadata right, it can be so difficult. Like it's easy to distributors have made it so it's like It's like if y'all subscribe to stuff like on your phone or Amazon or whatever, like it's so easy to subscribe to stuff and it's so hard to unsubscribe. Like you have to jump through so many hoops. It's even worse with distribution of music. It's really easy to distribute music. It's very difficult to correct or undistribute. Well, you can, we did prove that you can very easily take stuff down, but like to fix things, it's very, very difficult. So I would say it's worth it getting right. And really, when to answer your question, it shouldn't take that much time. Like, I think that an Excel spreadsheet requires a lot of emotional energy that is counterintuitive to artists, but I want to acknowledge that. But if you're taking the time, it is worth the investment of the care in that song to distribute it correctly. That was a great question.
Mario, go for it.
Hi, so I work with a rapper that he's under the Wu-Tang umbrella, but not in the clan, right? But so he has dozens of songs with dozens of other artists in that family, and they're on different labels, different distributors. Like, and he was even telling me last night that on some of the songs his name is misspelled, and we're trying to figure out where his money could be, because it's everywhere except his pocket. And I don't even know where to start with that. What's your advice for even just a starting point? Because he's DistroKid, TuneCore, everywhere. He's on all of them.
I mean, that just proves what we just said, right? Like it's worth taking the time. Like you leave money on the table, literally, if things are not correct. So where would I start? Well, I would pray first. I mean, with Linda, it was impossible. Like the lawyer sent me a printout of the rights. Now, this is granted 44 years of rights sub-distribution and like slicing and dicing. It's impossible. Like at least with Linda, it was like it's like a box of wires. You can't unravel that stuff. I think you could now. I think you're gonna need a good lawyer with like international ties probably to get it done right.
There have been instances in sort of everything that I've been through where having the benefit of a strong arm lawyer or a strong arm manager to really track that shit down, that's definitely beneficial. A lot of times I think it's like you just gotta find the person and like call them, like cold call them or send them lots of emails, or I don't know. I'm not one of those strong arm managers, but they do know how to do it. Lawyers know how to do that stuff.
Yeah, I think the problem with DistroKid, TuneCore, all these self-serve platforms is you're just like, they don't know who you are. This is part of the problem with distribution right now. And I don't know that there's a solution to it, but it's like there's this, I don't know what you would call like a super long tail, but it's like you're just part of a very small slice of income for them. Like you pay for what you get, right? So if you're going through Amped or the Orchard or PIAS to some degrees or secretly distribution, there's a human being you can call and be like, this isn't working, fix it, thank you. And they'll do it because in a lot of cases, hopefully you're bringing them income. That means if you retract that income, they're in trouble. DistroKid doesn't care. You could be like, I'm never using DistroKid again. And they're like, okay. So I do think a lawyer, though, changes the dynamic, and a lawyer can send a cease and desist. Like they can do things that you and I, normal folk, cannot do. And they have letterhead that really helps out, that looks scary. And so that's where I would start, is basically find a good entertainment lawyer. They're going to want to know how much money they're going to be able to track down, and they're going to want a slice of it probably, but it's better than not getting any of it, So that was a great question.
Thank you.
Connor also just posted in the chat here. Do you have any thoughts on owning your shit as an individual person versus creating a company like an LLC?
Mattiel, you want to answer that one?
Well, for me, it's helped to have an S corp. That's what I've been using for the last like 3 or 4 years. It was an LLC, and then we changed it to an S corp. And that kind of just absolves you from certain financial like vulnerabilities. For instance, me having an S corp and working through that S corp when I'm on tour and having insurance and all that stuff, like if something happens at a show and someone gets hurt, like I'm not responsible as an individual for that, because I have an S corp that's responsible for it. So that can be a huge thing. I mean, if like a freak accident happens or something like that. So that's just what I've been doing, and it's been working. So that's all I can really say. I don't think I've ever actually done it as like an individual. Yeah.
I mean, I think it gets back to you run a business. You are an artist. We are manifold creatures, but you are a business owner. So if you're a business owner, start a business. It's actually not that hard. Like there's lots, you could go to ChatGPT and it would walk you through the process. There's lots of examples of how to do that. There's examples of how to do that as a music business, as an artist. Really, every single artist should start their own LLC. And it doesn't happen very often, to believe it or not. And it's just because artists have not been informed that they are a business owner, but you are. So start by owning a business, get an LLC or an S corp, talk to an accountant if you can afford it. But you don't even have to do that. Like I liked what Mattiel said about like do the thing and make the mistake and then fix it versus like don't, which we just said not to do with distribution. but yeah, I think if you are a business owner, own a business, right? And it has all kinds of protections in there for like Mattiel said, insurance, but there's other stuff too. You can pay yourself out and avoid certain taxes because you're paying yourself as, I mean, there's just all kinds of reasons to start a business. So yeah.
I know we're coming up on time here. Just wanted to check to see if anyone has any last questions. If not, I have a question. But Gwen, you should go ahead because you just raised your hand. We can all day about.
Thank you. Sorry. I just have a question about copywriting because I copyrighted my first release like when I was submitting it to CD Baby. But I know that you can technically copyright like a voice memo of you just recording the song. And I'm just in the process of shooting a music video for a song that's not released yet. So a lot of people have my song right now. And there are people that I trust, but you guys say to trust no one. So I'm just curious at what point you recommend copywriting or what point you, Mattiel, copyright your stuff.
Yeah, I can.
I
Sorry.
register. I mean, I register my songs through BMI pretty much as soon as they've been written. I don't know if that's pretty important. And then it has a code, and if there's a co-writer, like all of that stuff is kind of worked out from the birth of the song on BMI.
Yeah, and I would say talk to your lawyer because I'm not a lawyer. However, registering it does not like registering it helps, but if you can prove that you came up with the song, you came up with the song. Like the minute you hit record, it's your song. So if there was somebody that stole that song, as long as you could demonstrably prove in a court that that was your song, you're good. Like copyright exists whether it's documented or not. It just helps, and it's a smart thing to do. Talk to your lawyer. So basically you're just registering the composition and you're getting an ISWC code, and that should happen all the time. The only reason that it shouldn't happen, like I've seen instances where people, like artists there are people that scan the ISWC databases for like new music. So that might be something to be concerned about if you're Taylor Swift. I'm sure they have their own special Taylor Swift backend process for things like that. But if that's your problem, then you're in a good place. So yeah, so definitely register it as soon as you have the composition, but also know that if you have proof, save that proof and you're good legally. I mean, if somebody got big off of it, you could prove it. So
Yeah.
talk to a lawyer.
On that note, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and being so active in terms of participating in the conversation. I know we covered a lot today, but I hope that you walked away with, some actionable strategies in terms of being able to support your own growth as an artist, either for yourself or, if you manage an artist. And thanks again to the fam and Aaron for hosting this event, as well as our esteemed guests, John and Mattiel. Feel free to connect with the fam on our socials, the fam music, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, John and Mattiel.